everyone, and welcome back to Black Moon Coven. So today we're going to be talking all about banishment of unruly spirits, negative entities, things of this nature, things that are becoming a problem and you need to banish. So there's many theories on what makes an unruly spirit, what makes a spirit uncontrollable or, you know, just uncontrollable, negative. There's many theories on this topic. And in my own opinion, this is basically a conclusion that I've gathered from reading various materials, various authors and things. This is my conclusion, that an unruly spirit, a negative spirit, a parasitic type spirit is made out of mistreatment, rejection. It's basically a want and a need that they have, and therefore they're going to use their spiritual influence to get us to do that. Whether it is release to move on, whether that is a message for you, or your energy. There's energy feeders out there. So they have a certain need, they want that need, and they're going to use that spiritual force to get it. So it's not often, but sometimes you will come across a spirit that is a trickster spirit or wants something from you, so it'll pretend to be someone else, or it just wants your energy, so it'll, you know, hang around the house and making people feel uncomfortable and angry and depressed and things of this nature. So, like I said, there's a lot of different theories about what makes an unruly spirit, what makes a negative spirit. And it's really healthy for you to come to your own conclusion after research from various authors and various different things. So, I am strongly against banishment of any type of entities unless it is absolutely necessary. Unless that they are threatening, depriving you of sleep, physically and emotionally abusive, you know, they're affecting you mentally and spiritually, they're making people uncomfortable, they got to go, all right? This is your house, this is your domain, and you are not going to run it like that. So banishment is needed sometimes, but a lot of the times it's not. And I will explain various ways that you can kind of go around banishment, but know this, that sometimes unruly spirits are really persistent and you're going to have to banish it. So the reason that I'm strongly against banishment is that if you banish a spirit, it won't come back. It will deprive it from returning, and therefore it'll cut off that relationship that you guys have, so then you cannot work with it in the future. It won't come back. Now, this is an instant if you have bonded with the spirit and something goes awry, then it turns on you or whatever the case is, and you have to banish it, and that can be very traumatic and emotional and everything else like that. Think of it like you have a best friend and you got into an argument with that best friend, and now you have to remove them from your life. That can be very stressful and traumatic. Sometimes banishment is an absolute necessary action, especially if the spirit is being unruly or unjust or just very making people uncomfortable and just becoming an issue in your home. You have to take care of it. So I'm not saying that you can get around banishment all the time, but the majority of the time, yes, you can get around banishment if you really try. So the very first thing that you have to do in order to banish a spirit is identify the problem. Do you really have a spiritual visitor? Do you really have a spirit in your home? Or are you just jumping to conclusions because you heard, you know, a branch hit the window or your cat knocked something off of your altar? Don't come to crazy conclusions and then waste candles and herbs and everything else, burning out a spirit that isn't there. So really put a stamp on it and make sure that there is an actual spirit there and not just some mundane occurrence. So what I'd like to do is sometimes when you hear an unexplainable noise, see if it happens a couple more times, and that reoccurrence of the phenomenon will confirm your judgment. So if it happens multiple times, and this could be mundane stuff too, I mean, branches hit the window from a tree and it could be a rather like tapping noise, but if you cannot explain it and if it happens once, you can kind of chalk it up to, okay, something fell, something, Or if it happens progressively and you cannot explain it every time, the case might be that you have a spiritual influence in your home. You have a spirit in your home. So spirits are naturally drawn to the witch's home, where they're naturally drawn to the energy we have and emit. Okay, our homes are generally a nice, friendly place for spirits. Generally, witches are like, oh, come on over, you know, I welcome spiritual influence because of what I'm doing and what I'm practicing. Not all spirits, or not all witches like spirits and spirit work, and I understand that. There's a tone of fear that still exists with spiritual working, especially because of media. Media portrays spirits as being inherently negative, and it portrays that if you have a spirit in your home, it's automatically haunted. And that's not the case. A lot of the times spirits wander through. A lot of the times they're going to be there, you know, just wandering about, have a message for you, whatever the case is. But what if it's a positive spirit? What if it's there to guide you in something that they feel like it is needed? You know, whatever the case is. I think that the term and the notion that all spirits are negative is really counterproductive, because you're eliminating the possibility of nice and good spirits and everything like that. So, like I said, spirits are usually just wandering through. They have their own agenda, believe it or not. They're very busy. I like to say that when you die, your jobs never quit. Now they're busy in other ways. You know, they're aiding other things and doing other things, and, you know, they have their whole agenda. So sometimes they wander through because they're doing something on the other side. So just be very wary of that. And especially in engaging in spirit work, be very patient as well, because a lot of the times you will not get anything for a long time. Like, say you leave out offerings all the time, say you bust out your spirit board and there hasn't been any activity or communication or anything of this nature, that will happen. Be patient. Spirits have a life of their own. So like I said, identify the problem. Make sure that there is an actual spirit there before you jump to mundane conclusions. So actually make sure that the occurrence progresses over a span of time. There you could do other things as well if you are naturally good at the power of discernment. So that means that you could pick up spirit's energy when it kind of changes in the room. Then you could go off of that. You can use the pendulum. However, pendulums are tricky to work with because a lot of the times, you know, it's our subconscious movement kind of moving the pendulum. So it could mean that you're extra frightened at that point, and you know, you could false answers is what you want to avoid. False answers, especially in something like this. You don't want to banish something that didn't need to be banished. So the next part is setting up boundaries, and that is a way to get around banishment. If you set up boundaries right from the beginning with this said spirit, it will either leave or obey the boundaries that you have set. It's kind of like house rules, okay? Now, you don't have to make a big plethora list, you know, that spirits have to obey and follow. No, these just general guidelines, you know, and setting up a boundary for spiritual visitors is important so they do not interfere with your daily life. A lot of the times it could be a nuisance, especially for those who can see and hear spirits. A lot of people will not have this ability. So those of you who can see and hear spirits, it can really infringe on your daily life. So what you want to do is set up boundaries, like, hey, you're cool to stay here, you're welcome to the altar, the offerings, you're welcome in my home. However, please don't infringe on my daily life, make people uncomfortable, do not harm anyone, so on and so forth. So that's just a little example that I have. You know, you make up your own house rules, dedication, everything else, but make sure that spirits feel welcomed and respected while you're there in your home. So don't just rattle off a bunch of rules like they're some child. You know, make sure that they feel welcome and respected, even though that there's rules in place. It's just a guideline. But yeah, welcome, respect. Those are the two main things in spirit work. So respect is the biggest one. Respect all the way to the end. Even if you have to banish that spirit, respect it all the way to the end. So now we're going to talk about banishment. And it's not my favorite topic to talk about because it means an end. But sometimes the end really justifies the means, and the end is always, it's sometimes not a bad thing to end things. It's really not. So it has this negative connotation to it, but sometimes it's for the greater good. So like I said, banishment can be emotional and tough, like leaving a good friend. Now that is going off of the basis that you have a loving spiritual relationship, or you have a good spiritual relationship with this visitor, this spirit, and it, you know, starts becoming unruly, starts asking for too much, or whatever the case is, or you just are not up to the point of spirit work in your practice, then you have to ask it to leave. That is another common point of advice that I give other people, is before banishment, like halt before banishment, before setting up boundaries or anything else if it's going to stay. If you are uncomfortable with spirit work, did you ask it to leave? Did you ask it to leave your house and leave your space alone because you're just not comfortable with the fact that there's a spirit present? A lot of the times that will work. Spirits will respect your space if you respect them. So forcefully but respectfully ask them to leave usually does the case. However, for those unruly spirits that are a little more persistent, banishment will definitely work. So another point is, don't mop before you sweep. And I love that saying because there is this undertone of constantly cleansing in a lot of modern age practices, you know, cleanse, cleanse, cleanse. However, a spiritual entity is it's not a physical thing, but it's a spiritually physical thing, if you know what I mean. So it has to be forcibly removed. It can't just be cleansed over. And if you mop before you sweep, you're just basically cleaning dirt and dust. So what you want to do is actually remove that spiritual influence from your life. You're physically, spiritually removing it, and then you can cleanse, and then you can ward. So it's very important to do a banishment first, because that is the physical or spiritual removal of the spirit from your life. To effectively banish a spirit, one must address it and forcefully, respectfully ask it to leave. So like I said before, chances are if you respectfully and forcefully, but with great respect, ask the spirit to leave, it will leave. However, some are more persistent than others, so you have to carry on into other means. So if that doesn't work, create a banishment ritual. And there are a whole bunch of banishment rituals. I would suggest making your own because it's more personal that way, but feel free to do what you want. So what you're going to want to do is create a banishment ritual. It can be from a simple candle lighting ritual all the way to a more grand, you know, rite. I was looking for the word there. A grand ritual, a rite of banishment for this spirit. So personally, I create a sigil based upon that spirit. Now, this is on the basis, again, of me knowing that spirit, of me interacting with it. So I'll give it a name. If it didn't say a specific name, I'll give it a name, and then make a seal or a sigil from that specific name, and therefore you can control the spirit kind of through symbolism as a means, because a lot of the time spirits don't speak in actual words. Symbolism is a great way for your subconscious and also the spiritual realm to kind of coexist and, you know, communicate through symbolism. So then you can burn the seal, you can carve it into a candle and burn it down. It's really up to you. You can base the symbolism off of what the spirit has told you, what it likes, what it dislikes, you know, certain things. Or if you don't have a sigil prepared or anything else, you could just be like, hey, spirit, or newcomer spirit, or just address it and then burn a piece of paper with that on there. You could do, again, the candle ritual thing. So you can also fumigate your home. You can fumigate with herbs that are meant for banishing spirits. So you can make an actual banishment blend. You can use thyme. I really like using thyme because it's a really strong strong banishment herb. You can use spruce, you can use pine, you can use various different herbs, and you could fumigate your home. You can fumigate with something like this, and this is a devil's claw. It's really popular in a lot of different folk practices, but basically this is a wafting wand, so to speak. So it is made out of, this one in particular, it's made out of hawthorn and then barberry branches. So you can see they're very thorny, and just be very careful making one if you are going to make one. You know, thorns like this, even if you cut them off, because you're going to have to make a handle, are impossible to see on the ground. So be very, very careful. Try to do this outside, especially with pets. And even outside, I recommend that you know, bag them up, do it inside of a bag, so on and so forth, just because you don't want any animals to trek onto a thorn. But basically, so you're going to fumigate and you're going to waft the smoke with this thorn wand, so to speak, and this is a good banishment tool. So this is a devil's claw, and it's a good banishment tool. I do it for a lot of my home cleansings as well, because it's just really good to get rid of everything else, you know. So the thorns help things stick to it and different things. But yeah, this is a really good banishment tool. Thyme is a really good banishment herb to do with spiritual banishment. And also you can use banishment oils, banishment powders, candles, stones even. There is a plethora of knowledge out there on how to banish a spirit, especially an unruly one. So those are just some really common examples. Now, sometimes, like I said, unruly spirits can be very, very persistent. So sometimes we will meet a spirit that is out of our hands. It's out of our control, and especially if you are connected to the spirit in some way, if it's latched onto you in some way, then you have to seek out a professional or another witch. And it's really important to know when to seek out another professional. For example, if you have done cleansings, if you've done banishments and they just haven't worked, then you have to seek out a professional for professional help. There are witches, yes, who do house calls. There are psychics, there's priests who do this sort of thing. So seek out a professional within your spiritual view, your religious view, just so you guys can kind of work together to banish this entity from your home to make it a nice, positive place. So after this spirit is banished, what you want to do is cleanse your home, clean it out. So now you have forcefully removed the problem, you've cleaned your home, and now your wards go back up. So we've talked about this before, where you clean the home after banishment and the wards go back up, because you don't want that to happen again. And you can customize your wards to be protective from that certain spirit. So there you go. How do you banish a spirit? At least how I banish a spirit. So yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully no one is in this situation right now, but if you are, you can put that down in the comments below. I will try to give advice or help anyone in need. Join the coven and subscribe for more witchy uploads like this one. And yeah, follow me on all my social media. Until next time, have a lovely rest of your day.